Hey guys, it's Kat. So, what I want to do for you guys today is I'm going to share with you a couple of cool facts that I have found out from I've actually been doing a really big research paper for school, and it was for a psychology class. So, I got to pick something related to psychology. So, what I chose was social anxiety with an emphasis on brain imaging, and it's just brain imaging is such a cool thing to me, okay? It's just awesome. So, shoving down my inner fangirl for a minute, I'm going to be teaching you guys some things about social anxiety and brain imaging and how those things work together and different parts of your brain. Your brain is so cool, okay? I want you to just take a step back and think about all the stuff your brain does for you. That's your brain working right there, is you thinking. The brain is so cool, because how does thinking work? How does thinking work? How does memory work? It's just so cool. But we're getting off topic. Back to social anxiety. So I better give you guys a little bit of a brief outline about social anxiety really quick. Social anxiety isn't just being afraid of social situations, it's actually more about your mindset, really. And there are some funky things going on inside your brain to help that work. So really it's about interacting with other people and opening yourself, and that opens you up to negative evaluation, which is ultimately what people with social anxiety are afraid of, is being negatively evaluated, even though they're constantly negatively evaluating themselves. So, there's that. Social anxiety is actually the third most common mental disorder in the US. Did you know that? The other two are depression and alcohol dependence. I'm not sure what order those are in. I'm not sure which one's first, but those are the two above social anxiety. And then, brain scans. So I've been mainly focusing on fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging. And fMRI is so cool because I didn't know this until very recently, but the way it works is you put the person into a magnetic field. Okay? First you just put them into the magnetic field, and then the fMRI watches their brain as they're in this magnetic field. And oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor oxygen-rich blood and oxygen-poor blood react very differently to being in a magnetic field. I mean, it doesn't mess up anything that's going on, but they just react differently. It just comes up differently on the scan. So what it does is it shows you the metabolic changes in your brain by showing where the oxygen-rich blood is going and where it's being used and all that, and it's the coolest thing. Yeah, I'm gonna be freaking out multiple times in this video. Multiple times. So there's that. And then fMRI studies have started showing people what brain structures are involved with social anxiety. And the main ones are the amygdala, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the insula. The insula is the part of the brain where we process the emotions on other people's faces, so it makes a lot of sense that one would be very hyperactive in social anxiety people, because they're constantly evaluating other people, trying to see, do they like me? Do they not like me? Am I being boring? What's going on? Help me! So the insula is doing that, and then you have the amygdala. The amygdala deals with primal emotions like fear, which is why it's involved in social anxiety. It's kind of like the fear center of the brain. And then you have the orbitofrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain where emotions are regulated. So typically that has an inhibitory effect on the amygdala. Like in my brain, there's an inhibitory relationship between the amygdala and the orbitofrontal cortex, because the orbitofrontal cortex is keeping the amygdala in check. But in people with social anxiety, the orbitofrontal cortex has an excitatory effect on the amygdala, which is basically just saying, oh yeah, go ahead, make them feel afraid, yeah, they should be scared about this, go ahead. Even though, really, there's not any actual danger. And then there's just a couple more, like the thalamus, the cingulate cortex, the prefrontal cortex, and the inferior parietal lobe, but those are the biggies. And then just, like, okay, I love this bit because it seems like it's physically wired into your brain, right, to be afraid of social situations, but nothing in your brain is set in stone, and that is just the coolest thing to me, because anything can change given enough time and given the right thinking patterns. And there's a term for the brain making a physical change in its wiring, and that's called neuroplasticity. And actually, that is occurring in your brains right now, unless you already knew this. But it's just so cool, because as you learn, that information is physically imprinted into your mind, because each memory is kept by growing neurons. There was a quote from a video I watched that I just really liked. It's every memory is physically tattooed into your brain, and it's so awesome. But that's neuroplasticity, is your brain growing, changing, adapting. And then there are things that you can do to help that process along of changing how your brain's wired. Medication, there's actually quite a few medications for social anxiety. Some of the main ones are MAOIs, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and benzodiazepines. Those all help even out the neurotransmitters in your brain, so they kind of help calm down those anxiety spikes. And then there's also cognitive therapy, where you have like an actual professional psychologist, therapist person help you figure out where that negative outlook stuff's coming from and try to fix it. Yeah, I just felt like sharing this with you guys because it was really, really fascinating to me, and I thought you guys maybe might want to learn about it too. So, yeah. Bye!